just to give you some context, what are these Ask Me Anything sessions? So I'll just quick introduction to myself and Toolflow. So I'm Alfie Marsh. I'm one of the co-founders of Toolflow.ai. We're on a mission to make AI universally accessible to non-technical people. On one side, we're actually building a product which is in stealth in private beta, and on the other side, we're actually building a community which is going to host events like this one, where we invite industry leaders like Mark to come and talk with us, where we can ask questions in a low-key, chill environment. We also have a Slack community where you can share resources, connect with people who are also in the space. So thank you very much for joining. This is our very first one. So I'm honored to have you all here. So in today's AMA session, we are joined by Mark Hughes. So Mark Hughes is the co-founder and CEO of Solidroad. Solidroad is a conversational training platform for sales teams. Their software allows sales reps to practice realistic sales calls with AI prospects and customers, so they don't burn real leads. So if you're interested in learning more, they're also in beta with design partners, so please reach out to Mark. Prior to Solidroad, Mark was the co-founder of GradGuide, and he's also got great experience in kick-ass companies like Chargerify, Intercom, and Uber. So before getting started, Mark, how was that intro? Is there anything I missed or anything you would add onto that?
Very good. No, spot on. Did it better than I would have done it anyway.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for joining. I'm very excited to chat with you. I've kind of been following your journey over the last few years, so it's very exciting to see what you're building now. So for everybody, would you like to maybe give a bit more context about Solidroad, and then we can jump into the topics and what we're going to talk about today?
Yep, sounds great. And obviously, thanks for having me today, and lovely to meet everyone. And familiar facing Guy, good to see you. But yeah, just a bit about myself and what we're building at Solidroad. As Alfie said, Mark, co-founder and CEO of Solidroad. As you said, conversational training platform for sales teams. We started the company in February of this year, and really with the kind of ethos of that we think that the best way to get better at sales is, or better at sales calls, is taking sales calls rather than listening back to previous sales content. So the tools in the market, the likes of Gong and Chorus, were all in that kind of wheelhouse. And then also, if you do want to get better by taking more sales calls, you're prohibited by the amount of sales leads you can actually generate. And sales leads are becoming a lot more valuable these days. So you don't want to be burning them during onboarding or training or putting a rep into the deep end. And having a bad experience with a prospect or a customer is only going to kill their confidence. So obviously, similar to, I'd say, imagine with Alfie and his co-founder experience with the advancements in generative AI, that was really kind of the kind of aha moment where we're like, now is the kind of right time to build this business. So it's been an interesting journey so far. We have been kind of waiting for the inference speed to come down. We've been waiting for lots of kind of changes to happen, and then kind of got to the right place in the last few months. So we launched on Product Hunt in September, where we finished second product of the day, which has been great. And then since then, really kind of onboarding our first customers, design partners that are using the product. And to kind of talk about what the product does, you sign up as a sales rep. You can have a personal workspace where you can use as a personal sandbox to practice difficult sales conversations. So you might have a call come up in 15 minutes, you want to practice for that. Or you might have a few dial sessions to do if you're doing cold calls. You want to practice some call connects before that, you can absolutely do that. And then you're also tied to a team workspace. So the team workspace will be managed by your manager or the admin of the account. They'll create these AI-powered role plays. So they'll build out scenarios. You can build AI personas, the rep profiles, common objections, what success looks like, feed in various kind of scorecards and rubrics. And then you'll take the conversation with the AI. And then after the call, it's kind of like a Zoom-like interface like this, call with the AI, and then afterwards you'll get real-time performance feedback. So that's kind of what we've got so far. And then the next step that we're really working on, we've just launched our new creation flow yesterday to make that a lot more easier. It was kind of free text field. We're making it more drop downs, kind of like Lego blocks, building blocks, and then looking to integrate with the rest of the tech stack in kind of the revenue org. So connecting with Gong and Chorus to create simulated calls on the back of real conversations, and then also connecting with CRM tools like Salesforce and HubSpot to pull in kind of the reports and how each rep is performing. So that's kind of what's happening at the moment.
That's awesome. So I guess one of the big questions a lot of people are asking is, is AI going to take my job? Are we going to be automated away with AI? Um, what's your view on the different traits that a sales rep has which are invaluable? What do we need to be focusing on in terms of our energy? Where can we leverage AI as skills to augment us versus where should we automate things away? How do you kind of see this division and where the industry is going?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I like my mantra here is that people buy from other people, especially people that they like. So I think where AI comes into play is automating away the mundane routine tasks that comes with sales. And actually now is the time where we're actually going to see who the best sellers are, like who can have the best conversations, who can build the best relationships. I think like the traits that you're looking out for is kind of like empathy, problem solving. They're the two that I always kind of look out for in particular. I think sometimes people forget when they're working in sales and they have a quote on their head and a revenue target to go after that. They're really in the business of solving problems for companies when you actually break it down to first principles. And so if you work in a software company, you have a software tool that you're looking to solve a particular business problem or help a business achieve a certain business goal. And I think people forget that a lot of the time. So I think, yeah, I'm actually excited by what AI is going to bring over the next few years, because I think that, yeah, it's going to take away the busy work from sales, which probably takes about 60% of everyone's time being updating manual tasks in Salesforce or sending follow-up emails, etc., and actually spend more time talking to prospective customers and talking to customers.
It's kind of the stuff that we didn't really want to do anyway. The laborsome, tedious, repetitive stuff.
Yeah.
It's interesting because when you look at a lot of some roadworks going on outside my house. I'm not sure if you can hear that on the mic. If you can, I apologize. When we look at the different types of like skills that generative AI can actually produce, one of the things, the downsides of it is it coming up with original ideas. It's really repeating probabilistic outcomes of something that's already happened before. So you kind of have to train it on specific data to get something original. What I found quite tricky is from a sales perspective, when we're doing for example research. It's one thing to be able to synthesize research and kind of like explain something back to you. Like, here's a LinkedIn profile, summarize it so I could do an intro for you. That's kind of, fairly, easy for an AI model to do. What it can't necessarily do at this moment is be able to pick out sort of these disparate sources and connect these aha moments. There's a lot of context that sits outside, context about your company, context about you had this conversation previously and it wasn't recorded somewhere, or you've had a similar industry and you picked up this sort of trait. It's really kind of connecting these disparate pieces of information and making some sort of use for it. I'm interested, how have you seen people adopt either in your own company or the clients that you're working with? Where are people really leveraging AI in their workflow versus where are they kind of sticking to their guns and the traditional way of doing things?
I think it's where I'm seeing it from talking to sales leaders and what I'm doing. I think where it's been effective is kind of this personalization at scale. So definitely with like outreach and stuff like that, being able to get more from less with like email outreach and stuff like that. Like, do I believe in the next 3 years that we're going to be writing our own outbound email sequences? Like, I don't think so. Like, I think like AI actually does a great job of that. And even when you use tools like there's a tool that I use, lavender.ai, that's very good for even when I'm doing like once-off personal emails through my Gmail, giving suggestions of things to say. So I think that piece, opening conversations and kind of that initial kind of touch point, top of funnel, is where I see a lot of people using AI, but like further downstream, less so. That's what I'm seeing anyway.
And when you say further downstream, what do you mean by that specifically?
Yeah, I think what we're trying to kind of focus on is like conversion rates and like how can we actually make sales reps better at selling. And I think that's where we can kind of come in to play. And there is a bit of a sweet spot there at the moment that there's not that many players operating where we are. And so I think there's like a lot of opportunities further down where I think a lot of people are running to this, the kind of the outreach space with AI. There seems to be kind of the kind of AI SDR per se is a kind of term I hear it being thrown around a lot, and like automating the kind of initial touch points is what people seem to be using AI for most in the kind of sales stack, is what I'm seeing anyway.
I feel like I've seen a similar trend on the marketing side in terms of top of funnel stuff, like top of funnel content. So the sort of thing that AI can really help with. Programmatic SEO, creating blog articles for keywords in mass. But the further you kind of come down the pipeline of, okay, when we're in the more consideration stage, we need really high quality stuff that's going to talk perfectly about our product. This is where I've seen the kind of transition of AI being used to automate into AI being used to augment. And it seems like you're saying a similar sort of thing. Top of the pipeline, prospecting, crunching the data, picking out the insights, the actual emails, etc. Very like tending towards automation versus sales enablement a lot more. How do we empower the salesperson to be better and augment them in their job?
Yeah, no, exactly. Because I saw a lot of kind of startups in the last few months try to build like voice bots and like actually do outbound phone calls and actually like replace that piece. And I've seen a lot of them go out of business because they've just like tried to do it, and then a few months later they're no longer there. So it's interesting to see that. I can't remember the company that like put out that kind of viral demo where they're like buying the Tesla or talking to like a Tesla. Someone working in like a Tesla garage, and it's just not very natural. And he kind of I think the prospect even copped on that it was an AI they're speaking to, and they're like, I don't speak to an AI.
Yeah, it's. I'm going to put a shameless plug in here. We have the tool directory, which is in the Toolflow Slack community, and I think that company is actually one of the tools that we've saved in there. So go and check that out if you want to see the demo.
Nice.
Also, just to pause for everybody else, if you do have questions as we're talking along, please do write them in the chat and we can come to them. This is just as much of a space for all of you to ask questions and dig in. So please feel free. Awesome. So we've obviously seen a bit of a shift in kind of the hiring market. It's kind of been a bit volatile throughout the last few years with COVID coming back and so on and so forth. Kind of shifts in, suddenly we're getting rid of everybody, now we're hiring everybody again, and it kind of seems to fluctuate back and forth. So with the slowdown in the hiring, how is this changing the way sales teams are being scaled and built?
Yeah, no, I think definitely in 2023, growth at all costs is dead. There's no longer a world where you can just hire more reps, deploy more quota to the floor. You can probably see it being an early stage startup, like the VC cash is just not there to support that model anymore as well. So I think everyone is focused on getting more from less and trying to get the most out of their existing team and the teams that they've kind of retained, because obviously there's been a lot of big kind of tech companies in particular that have had reductions in force. So the ones that the kind of reps that they've kept, they obviously deem them as the kind of most important, and they're investing heavily in making them better. So I think that there seems to be like a lot of investment being made in sales enablement, learning and development, to try and kind of move the needle with sales reps closing more deals rather than just kind of deploying more quota, hiring more sales reps. So it is definitely interesting because a lot of our tool is definitely probably the most effective during onboarding, and like the metric we can move is like reducing ramp time, but sales teams aren't hiring as many sales reps. So we're really doubling down on that kind of continuous improvement, continuous development, and like reinforcing sales training is what we're having the most success with at the moment.
Do you see this as people kind of fundamentally needing to shift their go-to-market motions? For example, you mentioned like the VC model, like raise a bunch of cash, hire a bunch of SDRs, hire some AEs, and kind of go out cold prospect the market. That kind of only really works if you have great ACVs, you have great retention, low churn, and quick payback periods. If that model isn't working because there's just less people buying and there's less VC money to fuel it, is that causing a shift in the go-to-market motions that you're seeing?
Yeah, I think it's still kind of early days. Like my background is B2B SaaS, so like what I've kind of seen is like just like the rifts and people like less hiring. I actually haven't been able to kind of see where they've actually changed the go-to-market motion, because for me anyway, back in the founder seat doing founder-led sales, I'm doing everything. So it's not like I have lots of reps there. But what I did find was I actually opened 2 recs and found it a lot easier to hire this time around. For a bit of context, my previous company was a company called Grad Guide, and it helped hire graduates into entry-level sales positions. And yeah, people were relying on us heavily because it was so difficult to get top talent for kind of BDRs, SDR jobs across EMEA. But yeah, it was actually, there's some great talent out there, and I didn't find it as difficult to hire. So I think there's great people on the market with regards to how people are changing their go-to-market motions. I'm not too sure, to be honest. I don't have enough data points there, but I'm sure they definitely are.
When you're hiring sales reps yourself, do you now start to look at the market in terms of how are you able to use these tools to become more efficient? We've seen to give some context to that, in the developer space with engineers, they have GitHub Copilot. And the kind of changes that they're referring to is, okay, we can have a junior engineer now become a 10x engineer, just because they've supported with Copilot, which it makes it I guess far less rewarding to put in all the effort to become a 10x engineer, because you can have some young whippersnapper come along and use a Copilot and bridge the gap. But it does open up the market to a bunch of young engineers who can now, if they're assisted with Copilots, with AI, and they're using these tools effectively, they can really bridge the gap and become competitive, which would kind of lead me to assume that the next wave of SDRs and account executives, people who are really in the top 10, are they the ones that are using all this technology? And is that something that you're actually screening for?
Yeah, that's a good point. And even in our case scenario, my co-founder Patrick, who's our CTO, is a big advocate of GitHub Copilot, and it's probably built a substantial portion of our app. And I think yeah, that's a fair point. And I think you need to kind of hire people who know know how to use these tools, or even just being very adaptable and willing to experiment. They're innovative to kind of try new techniques. Yeah, even for context, the guy I hired, it was going to be a BDO role, but now kind of actually transitioned into a growth role, because he's going to do a bit of marketing, a bit of sales, business development, a bit of closing. He's actually going to try to build out a self-serve funnel for us as well. It's really exciting. But the things that he's sending over to me, he's 25 years of age, is I think we should do this in TikTok. I think we should do this. I'm like, grand, yeah, run with it. Let's see how it goes. I think you just have to be willing to try lots of different channels, because there's no silver bullet with attribution and there's no kind of silver bullet with these kind of new sales channels as well. I think it's you have to hire for someone who is willing to try lots of different things. But I also think as well, what might be interesting, you got to use the GitHub Copilot example. Will we see every sales rep become a full sales cycle AE, for example? Will there be BDRs by themselves, or will BDRs actually close deals as well, because they'll have more bandwidth, and there might be just a high velocity motion that they come in at, and they actually are closing deals from day one rather than just doing business development.
Yeah, I mean, this is such a classic thing that happens when revenue teams' budgets shrink, right? It's okay, AEs not having enough pipeline because it's tough markets, and SDRs aren't able to bring enough leads. So AEs now have to prospect and become full stack, and that's probably one of the most frictional moves I've experienced in the sales team, is when you have an AE who's just closing, who has spent years in the trenches as an SDR and is kind of happy to get away from that, have to reopen the books and start prospecting again. I think that it could be really interesting that you said, in the future, this top of funnel pipeline stuff, creating emails, campaigns, if that sort of prospection can be automated or can be used much more easily with AI, then maybe there's going to be less friction. But coming with that, maybe there's going to be a higher expectation on reps to be full stack. So we have a question here from Sheila. Sheila, do you want to unmute yourself and ask away?
Sure. Thanks so much. I'm so curious about the actual adoption of your product, Mark. Just based that classic response to role play, you see some solid training deployed, and then you get to the role play piece and everybody goes, oh crap. And I'm just curious, when you add the component of it's a robot or it's an AI piece that you're practicing with, is that alleviating some of that pressure, or is it increasing it? And I'm just mostly curious. There's no follow-up for this one.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And thankfully, people are more receptive to it, because when you look at it on both sides of the spectrum, you've got managers or reps who don't like doing role play scenarios because it's like an awkward interaction, and they're kind of being taken away from their day to day. And then, yeah, reps find it really uncomfortable as well. Yeah, I still have PTSD thinking back of being in the room in intercom with like the BDR manager and all the other BDRs there. And it's like, oh, we're going to do a role play, and then just point at one person. You're like, oh my God, here we go. And like, you've got all your peers watching you, and then, yeah, it's a really, intense environment. So I think that it does take away a lot of the awkwardness around role play training, because as well, because like some of the feedback we get from managers as well, like, is that they'll go easier on reps as well because they know them and they don't really want to grill them. Whereas the robot definitely grills them. Like, we have like easy, medium, hard, and if you put it on hard, like it comes in fairly hot. But also it's like the ability to do it on demand, asynchronously. I think one thing we didn't really touch on is like, a lot of companies now are hybrid or remote. It's like, to do role plays nowadays in those situations, it's like doing it over a Zoom breakout room. So, which is even worse, I think, again, than doing them in person. So yeah, it is interesting though. Like the kind of the ramp up to it is like, by role play 5, they're comfortable. The first one is really, really like uncomfortable, and it's a bit of a shock. We do it to like, we kind of doorstep a few people as well. Like when we meet people on site to do like in-person onboarding sessions, we'll like get one of the managers to do it in front of the group. And they're like, yeah, I'm going to be grand. And then like complete panic. And they're like, like somebody's like, okay, we'll go again. So yeah, it is interesting. Yeah. And what the strangest thing as well is, like, we have a public facing demo on our website, which is like, you can pitch to Michael Scott or Dwight Schrute from The Office. And it's now been done like over 3,000 times in the last few weeks. And people will sit there and talk to Michael Scott for 20 minutes. And we're literally just like, and some of them are like funny as well, because like some people are unaware that we can watch them back. So like, there's people that like, I know, I'm like, oh, I saw you were talking to Michael Scott there for 15 minutes. Surely you had better things to be doing. And they're like, oh, you can see that. So yeah, it's awkward to begin with, but then when people come around, it's a lot more, yeah, I think it's a lot more comfortable than the current form of role play training.
It reminds me, I don't know if any of you have seen, there's the skit by Corporate Bro where they do the mock training and the guy just turns on and he's absolutely horrendously mean, and it's great. I'll have to find it and share it in the Slack.
That is good. Is it the girl going for the interview?
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Okay, yeah.
There's actually it's really interesting, your product, from that perspective. I'm not sure if you're aware, there's a company called Character AI, and they basically, if no one's heard of this, feel free to just quickly Google it. They basically created a model, and it's like you can create a chat persona that you can speak with, like ChatGPT, but you're speaking with a particular person. So it could be Harry Potter, it could be someone else. And they always talk about products. What's the retention? How long do people stay on them? As like a really good sign of how good these products are. And it's something crazy. Like the average session on this is like multiple hours. As the average session is insane. And there's clearly something there where we feel comfortable speaking to maybe a persona that we are either interested in or recognize, but within also the realms of, this isn't a human who's kind of passing actual judgment. And I imagine that's probably quite interesting in your product here, because you get the training without the fear of the judgment. I think that's, being on the receiving side of training, that's kind of what I would be most scared of. Is I don't want to, underperform, not because it's, I'm scared to learn, but I'm scared of being judged that, I'm not good at my job. And maybe that's going to overcome like a bigger hurdle for people.
Yeah, 100%.
All right. I'm not sure if your camera's on there, guys. So, Guy, do you want to unmute and ask your question there?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I was just curious. I was listening to what you were saying there, Mark, around the use of AI for how we communicate with prospects, and you mentioned Lavender, which is a really, really good tool. I'm a little bit apprehensive for the way that some of it is going, especially with some of the outreach tools that people are using for sales at the moment. And the question is really around if everybody was sort of to have a similar approach, whereby the majority of what they were communicating to their prospects or to their customers was using the same technology, and people were taking a back seat from actually producing their own copy and their own way of communicating. There's an argument to say that the sellers who maintain their effort towards producing their own personality and telling their own stories, and in fact not even having to rely on AI whatsoever to still communicate with their prospects, might actually end up coming out on top. And I'm just curious to know what your sort of how you envision the right balance between leveraging AI in outreach and maintaining your own personality and your own manual efforts, I suppose, would look like.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I think what normally happens in these instances is like probably that new channels for acquisition will emerge. So I'd say it was like hyper personalized emails, and then Sales Loft and the likes came along and automated them, and then everyone got really personal on LinkedIn, and then Linked Helper and all these other tools automated that. And it'd be just interesting to see what other channels open up, because I remember like when I was a BDR, when we started doing video outreach, like it was an absolute game changer. You're going from like 5% open rates to like 55% open rates. It's like if you send a video now, no one would probably get back to you. And then the next thing that I saw success in Chargify for our BDR team there was LinkedIn voice notes, and you could only do it on your phone, and everyone was just going around the office doing LinkedIn voice notes and get loads of replies. So I think that maybe it's just a case that like more personal channels will emerge over time, and some of the ones that are less personal will just get automated away. And that's the way I think of it, because it is a funny one as well, because I jump as well. Like I am a bit of a hypocrite here, because I'm like, okay, I'll set up all the sequences in HubSpot, I'll set them all up in Linked Helper, and I'm like, okay, cool, I've sent 150 messages, say that's great, and I got like X replies from that. Then I'm like not really learning something a lot of the time. So then I'll like change my outreach and be like, okay, for this week, I'm just going to go hyper personal on like one ICP. For example, we're having a lot of success with like BPOs, which are like business processing outsourcing companies, like call centers effectively. So it's like, okay, I'm going to go after like every call center in the UK, and I'm going to like basically send a carrier pigeon to them, because I'm going to just like get them on every touch point I possibly can to try to get them to get back to me. So yeah, I think it'd be interesting to see how it emerges. Probably think that maybe like more personal channels will open up, or like you said, people actually go the extra mile will probably win out in the end. Because like I obviously don't want that to happen as well. I think for me, I'm just like one person, so trying to open up as many conversations as possible. So like if there is a way to automate using AI, like I'm going to explore it until I get more people in seat. But I obviously don't want it to get to a stage where it's just like AI SDRs talking to other AI SDRs, and then it's just like, what are we all doing here?
It's interesting. I think about this, and I'm like, I'm not that bothered if something's personalized or not. I think the personalization for me is more, show me that you know me, show me that you've done the work. But that's a heuristic for you're not spamming me, or there's actually a reason why you messaged. And we kind of just categorize in, humans taking the time to do the research means this is relevant. But actually, I think if we have super relevant targeting and segmentation, and the message is the right person, the right time with the right message, I personally wouldn't care if it was an AI or an actual person, as long as it's relevant. That's kind of, I feel like, the main thing for me. It's just I don't think we're quite there yet in terms of being able to do that automatically. So we've got some more questions. I think it's Paresh, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. You had your hand up. Do you have a question there? Might need to come off of mute.
Yeah.
There we go.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, indeed.
Yes. Thank you very much. Hey, hi everyone. Hi Mark. I'm Paresh from India. You're building something really good in a very upcoming space. A couple of questions, and I'm going to stitch them together and make it really brief. So when you talk about Solidroad, right, and AI in sales is really picking up. Number one, how is this different than, let's say, from a Gong, Chorus, or even Saleskin? Saleskin is based out of India. Number two, when you talk about the space, there is a newly funded startup, Cyro.ai, which received 18 million in funding recently. they're also building, something similar, but they're building for the broader audience beyond SaaS. So, uh, who are your target markets, or target sectors, if I may call it, if I may put it that way? And what does the traction look like today at Solidroad? I know it's early days for you, but I'm pretty sure that you have received some really good data points and experience speaking to your new customers or prospects. So would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so lovely to meet you as well. The first point on like Gong, Chorus AI, etc., on these call recording meeting bots. Yeah, I think like the assumption that we're making is that this is a better way to get better at sales, that you're actually practicing realistic sales scenarios rather than watching back sales calls. That's not to say that they're not great tools, because like I've bought Gong in the past and I really rate it. And like all the insights in particular are really helpful. I think where they seem to be going is like there's a lot of tool consolidation going on in sales. You can see like HubSpot bought Clearbit during the week, and there's been a few acquisitions in recent weeks that don't really come to the top of my mind. But and also like the likes of Apollo actually building a meeting recording tool, and they're all kind of like consolidating. I think that where the likes of Gong and Chorus are going are like that like CRM space. So like I think all the recent updates are like summaries of calls and then automatically updating your CRM, and also then moving into like email sequencing and stuff like that as well. So not too concerned with them. Like it has come up in conversations like, oh, what if Gong build this? It's like, yeah, they could build it. Like they've got 100 odd engineers. They could probably build it faster than two of us. And so it's obviously just a chance you have to take. But that's how we think we're different. And we do look at them as like frenemies, because we do want to integrate with Gong, like I said, to pull in real call transcripts and build simulated role plays on the back of that. And that's something that people have asked for. So that's the way we're looking at that. And then like the question around our target market, to be honest with you, like it's so early days, like I can't say that we've narrowed down our ICP, because if we did, I'd try raise a lot of money and hire a lot of people and run fast at it. Right now, it's still like exploration. Where we're having success is B2B SaaS, but like I'm like, is that just because my network's in B2B SaaS and people are like taking a chance on it? That's one data point. As I said, like these BPO call centers, and the reason there is because their whole USP is like time proficiency. They have a 50% attrition rate on average. So it's like how quickly they can ramp new reps up is like why you go with TELUS International rather than Concentrix. So that's like a metric that we can definitely hit on. Apart from that, like staffing and recruiting is an interesting one. I know we talked about the recruitment environment, and what's happening there is that a lot of recruiters or like recruitment agencies have never had to do full cycle recruitment before. They've only had to worry about getting candidates because there's always been jobs to fill, but now they have to do business development for the first time. So they're literally trying to train recruiters how to sell to businesses. And then the next one, I'm literally just been building out account list today. So another one that we're looking to explore is like insurance and pharma sales as well. And the only data I have behind that is meeting people and saying like, I think this would be quite helpful for pharma sales. So I'm going to try it out and see how I get on.
I think we had a question from Sophie in there. Sophie, I'm not sure if your camera's off, so I'm not sure if you're there to unmute and ask your question. But if you are, please go ahead.
Yeah, no worries. Just because you mentioned voice notes earlier and video, I think that I'm sending great videos and that they're real personal, but nobody likes to open them. So that's a bit frustrating. And voice notes, I'm not really seeing a lot of results there. So I'm just wondering if you're still finding that they're, kind of worth your while, or what your kind of thoughts are there, I guess.
Yeah, for me, like where I'm having success at the moment is like Loom demos. I just feel like people are like super busy, and I'm like trying to make a bespoke demo of the products for a certain persona, and then I'll like create that demo. Another thing I'm doing, but like obviously I don't know if anyone, like not everyone can do this, but like if there's some way you can kind of personalize it to their company. So what I'm doing at the moment is like looking to build out like these kind of viral demos that have been successful for us. Like we got a lot of traction on The Office and pitching to Taylor Swift. So we've actually cloned, like say if I talk to Alfie, I can actually then try clone Alfie's voice from a YouTube video he's done. I'll put an image of Alfie in like Solidroad, and then I'll actually send a link for him to try like sell Solidroad back to himself. and that seems to be quite successful as well. So I'm literally trying absolutely everything, not having that much success with the audio notes or the videos myself, but like Loom demos where it's like quite bespoke is where I'm getting the most reply, and then these kind of weird viral demos that I'm trying to build out myself.
Okay,
So-
nice. Thanks, Mel.
A follow up on that one. I think there's actually a fellow ex Intercom team. You might know them actually, Mark. But there's a company called Vidu.io. And they do like personalized videos for sales prospecting. So I think they like started out with being able to create like customized GIFs where you put in your name of the prospect, and then you can automate that and things like that. I think those are good tools to check out. Did we have any other follow-up questions? Okay, I think Sheila was answering back to Sophie there. Awesome. So we've come to about the 40-minute mark. So if there are any other questions, please do drop them in the chat or raise your hand and we can go through them now. Mark, is there any things that we haven't spoken about yet that you feel that we should have covered today?
No, there's nothing really kind of top of mind for me. What about yourself?
I think it's been awesome. I feel like there's so much hesitation and fear around adopting AI. The thing with your own product around AI assisted sales training, I think is actually awesome because it's going to really allow teams to scale up their training, which is one of the hardest things as like a manager of a sales team. It does remind me at the beginning when Gong first came out. I remember people being like, we are never going to record our sales team. Our salespeople will never want to be recorded. There was this kind of real negative stigma about it. Fast forward a few years and absolutely everybody is doing that. And it's kind of, you'd be seen as crazy if you didn't have that part of your training. And I feel like this is just like a prime example of where you might have that initial inertia because it feels odd. It feels odd to speak to an AI that's not real, but the technology is getting incredibly powerful, and I think this is just going to become standard practice as we come into it. So if there's no other questions, I'd just like to say thank you so much for your time. Everybody, it was really nice to meet you and put face to names. As we said before, the Toolflow Slack community is there for everybody to ask questions, share insights of things that you're learning about. If you are wanting to learn about prompt engineering, if you want to learn about certain tool stacks, if you want to have more guests. I mean, it was actually, I think Sheila and I were having the conversation in the Slack community, which actually led to us reaching out to you, Mark, and having this conversation. So we do listen to you and we do want to hear who you'd like to have on and the topics that are interesting to you. So thanks on behalf of everybody. Thank you very much for your time, Mark, and thanks everybody for joining.
Thanks, Mil. Thanks for having me.
Lastly, before as people go, where can they find you? How do they reach out to you?
The best place to get me is LinkedIn, probably. I'm on there all day. But yeah, I'm also Mark at Solidroad.com. And yeah, our website is Solidroad.com. And I'm the other side of the live chat as well.
And if people want to try out your product, I think you're taking on design partners at the moment. So is that the best place to reach out via your email as well?
Yeah, we're kind of like handheld onboarding everyone at the moment. So yeah, it's just book a call with myself, which you can do through the website. I'll create your trial account and you can test away, and looking forward to seeing how you get on.
Awesome. Alrighty. Thanks very much. Thanks everyone
guys.
very much. Take care.
Thanks,
Have a
Mel.
good evening.
Chat soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Good evening. Bye bye.